Production support for Hot and Cold is brought to you by American Solar Technics, manufacturers of components for wood burning and solar heating systems. Hey, I'm Tom Gozy. Welcome to Hot and Cold. This week we have a really exciting show. The roofers are here, and they're going to start putting the roof on. I'm not, because I don't know what to do. They're going to start putting the roof on. The guys from Bangor Roofing are here. We're going to have a roll-formed standing seam copper roof, a forever roof, put on the project house here on the coast of Maine. And it's a brisk day in the beginning of December. What better day to start doing sheet metal roofing? Stay with us, we'll be right back. Well, here we are. Through the magic of television, we're actually going to show you more of the finished product than not. We're here with Jerry Gallant, who is a supervisor at Bangor Sheet Metal and Roofing. Is roofing and sheet metal?
Roofing and sheet metal.
And we got both here.
Yep, you do.
So, and we got one of the supervisors on the job. Jerry was here all week, and this was a cold week.
Very cold.
You guys earn your keep year-round, especially this time of year. This was wickedly cold and windy, but the result we have is quite something. And what I wanted to do is just talk a little bit about, before we go into the nuts and bolts of the project, just talk about what we're looking at here. We've got a, this is called a standing seam roof.
Correct.
And you have double crimped the seam. So these are pans that are formed, and we have a pan here actually, and you'll see that up close in a minute. But this obviously rolls out from the machine here, the roll former. And we have two little dents in the middle. I shouldn't call them dents. I should call them
the stiffening ribs.
Stiffening ribs.
Yes.
And those just make it stand a little bit more solid when it's up on the roof, especially if the roof is not quite level.
Right.
And I heard tell that the roof here was not quite
level, yeah.
So the stiffening ribs will keep the metal looking flatter.
Yeah, it keeps the oil can out somewhat. I mean, you're still going to get oil canning to a degree.
And that oil canning is a little bit of puckering that you see on any kind of sheet metal.
Yep.
Not just on copper.
Right.
Is copper an easier material to work with than steel, say, which is what you see a lot of?
Actually, it's a little harder because the copper is a little softer, and it has a tendency to dent easier, and actually oil can a little easier too, because when you're tightening the seams up on your ribs, it has a tendency to pull and stretch the metal a little more than
being a soft metal.
Yes, being a soft metal.
Yeah. So let's go through the routine a little bit. We have the trim around the edge. We call that rake.
The rake goes up the eaves on the side, and this is your eave metal, which we call a starter metal, which our panels actually hook on to the bottom. Okay. And so the panel actually folds down around that bottom edge. Yes. And
it's crimped in place.
Yes.
So, and then the panels are laid out. You start in the middle and work your way out to the edge.
Yes, that way we end up with an even panel on both ends.
Okay. Which what we have here.
Yeah.
And then on the top, we don't have the cap on yet, but we'll put a cap on top of that.
Yes.
And that'll be it. So the roof is covered at this point.
Yeah, it's covered.
It's basically done.
And you have a raglet which will be cutting around your chimney to keep that watertight. Okay.
And when we look at fasteners, I noticed that the starter trim here is screwed into the soffit. Now, what kind of fasteners do you use when you're dealing with copper? Because copper has the ability to make many things corrode.
Yes, it does. We used a brass screw, and that prevents electrolysis because, like you say, it will react to the copper and tend it to corrode out a lot fast. So you got to use something's compatible with that.
Okay. Okay. Let's take a look around the edge here. So here on the gable end, things are a little bit more complicated because you have you have to cut in the corners, and where the two rakes come together. That looks really smart. Boy, I mean, I know because I've been working on this house. There ain't much that's right. Plus, I laid the roof deck on, and I know that was a little challenging for you. But it looks really impressive. Any particular? What were the issue? Any major issues you had to deal with other than the weather?
Well, basically the end panels are the starter metal is a little different than the rake metal, so
Yes.
we kind of had to scribe those and match them up and angle them, finagle them in place there a little bit.
That was the guy who put on the soffits there.
Yeah.
He kind of lost something. I think he was drinking that day.
You think? But anyways, you know, it's just
You really pulled it together, so
it came together well, you know, with what we had there to work with, and I think it looks pretty good. It's just a little time consuming doing that type of
sure.
rake metal because you get all the different angles and whatnot on it.
What we tried to do with the rake is we've got that diagonal piece there, which kind of mimicked what was there originally.
Right.
So, and as that ages, it's really going to look pretty smart.
Yes, it will.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's take a break, and we'll get some of the metal and talk a little bit more about it. We'll go inside, I think, where it's slightly warmer.
I bet belong to me. Oh, I make you go hunting, and I want to make you bundle out of good man. Oh, shoot him in the bridges. I bet it's gonna do my oh, shoot him in the bed with me. I say, shoot him in the bed with me.
Well, we're back, and we came inside because it is now snowing out, and it is, thank goodness the snow held off for us. We just got this done in time. I want to talk a little bit about a little more about the copper roof and how it goes, how it's applied. It's easier to do inside where it's warm than it is outside where it's windy and snowing. So we have the standing seam machine rolls out the sheet metal. And in this case, it's copper. It also does steel. It does the coated steel as well.
Yes.
Okay. And we have two sides to each of these panels. This would be, I'll call it the male side, and this would be the female side. And so this would be the part of an adjacent panel, and the two go over like that. So they overlap. And then a single crimp roof, we would bend over this little lip and grab that, and that would be secure for most locations, not for the coast of Maine. But for here, we've done a double crimp where this, after it's rolled over, this piece here, which is what, about 3/8, half inch,
Yep.
rolls over a second time.
Yes.
So you have two crimper tools that you use to do that.
Yep.
You go down each seam. And these are 20 inches wide.
20 inches wide.
So, it's elegant in how efficient it is because you have your roll goods and you're cutting everything basically. Are you cutting them exactly the length, or do you put them up there and trim them after you're done?
Once we run them through the machine, we make a mark on our platform out there. We run them out to that length, and we cut them right off any
Right, with
length
that
we
guillotine.
want. We can run that off any length we like.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, but it's exact then to go right up on the roof. You don't have
Yep.
to trim once you're up there
Right.
usually, unless you're like me and you measure it wrong.
Right. Yeah.
And hopefully it's long instead of short.
That's right.
But you do have a cap, so you have some wiggle room
Yes,
on
we
the
do.
top end.
Yeah.
And that's the clip.
Yeah.
That-
This is a clip right here. It's going to
Okay.
hold onto this panel right here. Say if this was the roof.
Okay.
Right here, that clip would go right over this right here.
I see.
And you got two little puncture holes here, and that's where
Yep.
you'd put your nails in right
Okay.
here. Your copper nails, and
That's
then that
slick.
panel would go right over the top. And
And that clip is also crimped with the process of crimping
Yes.
everything else.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's extremely solid.
yeah, that's meshed right in with the whole crimp.
And how far apart do these clips go? Up
Those go
this-
18 inches apart up the roof.
So we have 18 essentially, we have a clip every 18 inches on either side of the panel.
Yes.
That's a lot of fasteners.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a roof.
Yeah,
You want
that's
to
right.
stay there.
Yeah, you want to stay there. You don't have to
Yeah.
do it twice.
Now, if you're doing a coated steel roof, you would have a steel clip.
You would have a steel clip.
So what you're trying to do is obviously copper,
To
there's
copper,
copper
right.
everything's everything's copper because it's a
right.
very noble metal. If you use the galvanized nail on this, the nail would rust away in no time.
That's right.
So if you remember in high school chemistry, the electrochemical series, all that stuff you never wanted to know about, these guys have to know about it, otherwise you get into serious mischief. And also other noble metals like aluminum, if you use aluminum with the galvanized nail, the galvanized nail will rust
That's
away.
right. Yep.
So, do you do this in aluminum? Do you have any
Yeah.
call for that?
Yeah. They actually make an aluminum panel that's painted,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically the same. It looks the same as the metal panel.
Okay.
when it's
What would be an
applied.
advantage of using aluminum?
It would last longer.
Okay.
It would have less chance of it rusting and whatnot.
As opposed to
A regular
steel.
steel metal
Yeah.
panel. Because if you get scratches and whatnot in the metal panel,
Yeah.
of course, that scratches are going to
yeah.
be exposed.
Well, that was my
and rust.
concern here when the opportunity came to get copper. Given the location we're at, the copper is going to be the most long-lived.
Oh, most definitely.
So now we've got this shiny new penny look here.
Yes, you do. Very shiny.
And how long? What is the aging process? What does it go through in terms of once it's up on the roof now, exposed to the weather, things happen. Aging occurs. So what? Kind of run us through what will happen to the copper.
Basically, down here by the coast, the salt in the air is gonna make this happen a little faster. What happens is this panel will start to turn brown first.
Okay.
This will probably be brown, I'm going to say for eight years probably before you actually start seeing the patina show. And what the patina is the green you see on the old churches and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what actually will protect this copper for 100 years down
Yeah.
the road, basically, is that patina on top, and that protects it from all the elements from it actually deteriorating any further.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take a while for it to turn green.
Yeah.
But it will happen faster down here by the coast than it would inland someplace where the salt really speeds that process up.
Now if one has and there's no maintenance then involved in
No.
this kind of roof. You just put it up and forget about it.
That's
and
right.
Just watch. If God forbid something like this loosened or something, you would see that popping, but that's highly unlikely.
Very high.
And that would probably be because there was some structural issue with the structure of
right,
the building.
it's shifting or whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if you had a standing seam steel roof that had a Kynar paint on it, you would be looking for scratches and rust, and you'd want to touch that up and maintain that.
Right. They have a touch-up paint. Actually, when you order the roll, you can actually buy a touch-up paint that they send right with you.
Okay. Which would be something if you were putting it up and you had a nick or something, you
Right.
want to protect that
Or
right
if you
while
put,
you're there.
if you have a steel panel and you're putting steel rivets in or whatnot, you can touch that steel rivet
Oh,
up
okay.
just so that you're hiding the
Okay.
the rivet. Yeah.
Okay. Now, we've shown on this show, and we've talked a lot about the the screw-down metal roofs, like the McElroy roof,
Mm-hmm.
which I've done a couple of. And the the difference, of course, is that the different aesthetic, different look, but this has no exposed fasteners.
That's
There's
correct.
no place where this is nailed in is under a layer of copper.
Yeah.
So we don't have. So we've got that like so, and this is under there like that.
Yep.
So none of that is exposed to the weather or any potential for leakage.
That's right.
And the screw-down roof, which would screw down through the face of the panel, you've got a gasket there that you have to hope is going to
Right.
last, which I guess they do last pretty well, but there's the potential there for having to go back and maintain it.
Yeah, sometimes that rubber grommet will dry out and crack, and after a while they deteriorate.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll have to take those out and put new ones in.
Okay.
Yep.
So you guys have had to do that? Have
Yep.
you had to make? No?
Yeah. Not on any of our roofs. Usually it's an old
Yeah.
roof that's, somebody's trying to get a few more years out of it, and they're
Okay.
leaking, and sometimes we go back and.
So there's the risk of that happening, and maybe, hopefully the chemistry and the grommets is better on the new ones than it was maybe 20, 30 years ago when they
Oh.
were first used?
I'm sure.
We'll hope so anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't do many screw-down roofs anyways. Ours
Yeah.
is usually pan-formed, and
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks a lot better, and also there's, from a homeowner's point of view, there's no maintenance.
That's right.
And the liability, there's no liability worrying about fastener failure,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this. Let's take a quick break, take care of a little bit of business, and we'll be right back. Okay, well, there are a couple other things that we need to talk about when we're doing metal roofing. And one is, I had tar paper on the roof, had a big blue tarp over it,
Yeah.
to keep the tar paper from blowing away, which seemed to work fairly well. I guess you took off the tarp, everything was okay underneath?
yeah, it looked fine.
Yeah. And then, you don't put this over tar paper.
That's correct.
You have to put it over this, which is rosin paper.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the reason for that?
Basically, this keeps the panel from sticking to the roof and
Okay.
allows this panel to contract and expand.
Okay.
And that helps prevent it from buckling or
All right,
or
because
blowing on
you've
us.
got, in this case, what, 16-foot chunks of metal up there.
Right.
And as they heat and cool, they
That's-
expand and contract.
That's right.
And the tar paper would certainly stick over time. Certainly in the summer, it would get hot and sticky and
Yeah.
grab, and then in the winter, it would bind it up.
Right.
So rosin paper, which has been around forever,
Yes, it
I
has.
take apart old houses all the time and
Yeah.
find it underneath, and that just slides very freely. So, and then you just staple that up. And I noticed you're putting the rosin paper vertically
Yes.
as you're putting the roof on, as opposed to putting it horizontally.
Basically, that's just easy for installation for us because we can roll a piece down,
Mm-hmm.
get it nailed in place and set a panel on it. Because if you start going the opposite direction with it, you're trying to walk on it and
Yeah.
whatnot, and you're ripping it. The stuff,
Yeah.
as you can tell, is not much thicker than tissue paper. And
Yeah. And it's not for holding water. It's not.
No,
it's
no.
not a moisture barrier.
No.
It's just paper. And
Right.
it's just to be slippery.
That's right.
That's its only purpose.
Yeah.
And in the old timers, I guess, used it for an air barrier, but that's not what we're using it for here.
The wind we had down here last week, as you know, if you had a roof full of that, it'd be
Yeah, it'd be down the road.
It'd be out in the
No
ocean
time.
here someplace.
Now, there's one other piece. We don't have it done yet, and this is something you'll be doing next week after the snow melts, is the cap. And this is part for sealing the cap. Now, on the bottom edge, it's just folded over. We showed that. But on the
Yeah.
top edge, a little bit different detail.
Yes, basically at the top, what we do is we have a Z-bar here, which we cut to fit the panel in here.
Mm-hmm.
It's placed on the very top of the
Yep.
roof, and this gets nailed down with some copper nails.
Yep.
And then we silicone the ends in here so we can't get any wind or snow blowing up through here.
Okay.
And then the cap has a 1-inch return on it, which will hook underneath this lip right here.
Mhm.
And then the cap will come up and over the peak. And then this
Yep.
gets crimped right onto this right here. And then you
Okay.
put a few rivets in it just so it can't release up there.
Yep.
And that's basically the detail on the cap.
Okay. So it's kind of interesting to me. Basically, this all nails together. This
Yeah.
is not. The screws are only used at the edge
Yep.
for starting and for the rake, and of course it's all protected, so it's not. There's no uplift
That's
from
right.
the wind to. There's no
no-
way for the wind to get underneath it.
That's right. With everything double seamed, and you never get any wind under that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll get a little rippling effect of wind going over the top of it. but-
Sure. Now, have you been into old roofs that have been put down that are copper, and what kind of, do you see anything, what kind of odd things do you see, or do you see, have you had to deal with that?
I've seen a lot of people's names under the roofs that they've wrote their names under
Cool.
or whatnot. You know,
You guys write your name, I hope, when you're done.
Well,
You
we
should do
haven't
that.
yet, but we should up there,
Yeah.
shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Sure. That way, in 200 years from now, when they go to change it, we'll
Yeah.
have our names on it. Sure. Put a business card underneath it.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But so is that? I mean, but do you find any failure areas on old roofs that you have to go back and deal with?
Not really on a copper roof. They seem to hold up rather well. I mean, we actually haven't. We've replaced panels here or there that the wind's gotten under and has taken off or whatnot, and we've replaced that. But as far as taking off a whole complete copper roof and replacing it, we haven't had to do that yet.
And those old roofs, did they use copper fasteners to hold them down?
Yes, they did. They either use copper or they use brass.
Okay.
Because we did redone the slate roof on All Souls Church in Bangor, and all the copper that was on there and the slate, they all had old brass nails in them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those fasteners were still.
They were still intact, and
Right.
in fact, I saved about 10 pounds of them
Yeah.
picking them up.
Yeah.
Hate seeing them throw them away.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a sin, and especially something that's that old.
That's right.
That's quite something. So they're really it's a fairly simple. You guys make it look simple, and it's a pretty straightforward system. I won't call it necessarily simple because there's obviously a lot of experience that goes into putting a roof like this on a building. But and this is I guess we could call it a technology that's been around probably for hundreds of years.
Oh, yes.
And it really hasn't changed very much.
No?
The only thing, well, I guess the thing that's changed is the fact that we can roll it out through the machine and save a lot of shop time.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't have to bring those pieces down here pre-made.
Right,
You do them right
transport 'em.
on site. So there's no issue in terms of measuring and making an error.
That's right.
In terms of measurement, or if there was some incongruity. Well, this is a simple roof too, because it's just two flat sides. You have to get in the roofs where there is peaks and valleys and all kinds of things that compound angles, so you'd be cutting all kinds of different lengths.
Yeah, it gets a little more complicated then. Yeah.
It gets a lot, so it's a lot easier to do it on site than it is to try to measure and go back. And
Yeah,
that
that'd
would
be
drive
almost
me crazy.
Yeah, that'd be way too labor intensive
Yeah.
to do it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the big blizzard the first blizzard of the year is starting, Jerry.
Yeah.
So we won't take long out here. I just wanted to show the back side of the building. Now, you guys, a couple of things. One is, whenever you're doing this kind of roofing work, your guys are always, the person that's on the roof is always tied off,
Yes, he is.
and he's got a safety harness, which we're showing. And of course, you have staging with all kinds of backstops, so if anybody is up there, they're secure in that they're not going to run the risk of, if they trip or slip or fall backwards, they ain't going down to the ground.
That's right.
It's a dangerous business being in roofing.
Yes, it is.
The other thing I wanted to mention and show is you took my PVC vent pipe and what did you do to it?
Well, we actually made a copper stack with a cover on it,
That
and
looks so cool.
and we basically the cap that you had on there was aluminum, so we had because that would have reacted with the copper, so we made a
Right.
stack that would go right over it, and we soldered it right to the panel,
Wow.
and makes it look a lot better than seeing a white PVC stack sticking up out of there.
It does. It looks fantastic. It really looks it looks way too classy for anything I'd be associated with. But I guess that's just the sake of having you guys do this. So we're going to let you go because it's getting cold out. And if you guys have any questions, give us a call on the radio. Bangor Roofing and Sheet Metal. Have been doing this do all kinds of roofing for longer than anybody I know in the area. And do everything, be it rubber roofing, metal roofing,
PVC, shingles.
PVC shingles, slate,
Yeah, hot roofs.
the whole thing. And they're the best. What can I tell you? I'm pulling them down a little bit being on the show, but I'm sorry. They came up to the plate. So, Jerry, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. You did a great job in really difficult weather.
Thank you.
Production support for Hot and Cold is brought to you by American Solar Technics, manufacturers of components for wood burning and solar heating systems.